Welcome to the debate. So imagine spending 3 of your weekends just writing a back-end automation tool that saves your engineering department like 500 hours a month.
Only to be completely passed over for a promotion by a guy who built a colorful, functionally useless dashboard.
Exactly. It happens all the time. Today, we are looking at the modern tech industry's high-performance culture. We're asking a fundamental question. Is this environment, the one celebrated with wellness buzzwords, ping pong tables, unlimited vacation days, is it inherently a mask for systemic corporate exploitation?
Or, on the flip side, is it a necessary, albeit pretty harsh, structural reality for organizational survival in these really high-stakes markets? It's a dynamic that essentially defines the modern corporate workplace.
Right, and it's probably the single most critical puzzle for anyone just entering the field to solve.
Definitely. And to explore the mechanics of this environment, we are drawing on a really compelling new book called The Chilling Effect by Joy S. It's published by BFC Publications Private Limited.
Yeah, and it's widely available online on platforms like Google and Amazon. It's basically a forensic examination of this fictional tech giant, Innovate Dynamics. But the unwritten rules it exposes are incredibly real.
Very real. We are targeting this discussion specifically at junior developers entering the industry for the first time, to help you navigate these complex, often really contradictory environments.
So to set the stage, I will be arguing from the perspective of the burned-out technical architects on the ground. I contend that this culture is a deliberately designed machine for systemic theft, silencing truth, and extracting maximum labor under the guise of meritocracy.
And I'll be arguing from the perspective of senior leadership. My position is that what feels like, exploitation or toxicity to an engineer on the ground is actually the necessary enforcement of alignment, stability, and just corporate survival in a brutal market.
Well, let me lay out the architectural view first. The modern high-performance culture is essentially a gilded cage. It is an architecture of control, dressed up as an intellectual sanctuary.
A gilded cage is a bit dramatic, don't you think?
No, I mean, in The Chilling Effect, we see this clearly through a phenomenon the text calls the Dead Sea effect. Institutional toxicity is not a bug. It is a feature that deliberately causes top talent to evaporate.
Right, leaving behind the residue.
Exactly. A heavy residue of political opportunists and compliance-driven managers. Technical excellence isn't rewarded, it's actively weaponized against the workers. Words like agility and velocity are stripped of their engineering meaning.
They become buzzwords.
Yeah, buzzwords used to enforce mandatory weekend sprints and chronic burnout. The system doesn't accidentally break people. Breaking people is its operational model.
Okay, but we have to look at the macro-level incentives here, because a massive corporate entity is not an academic sanctuary for engineering purity. It is a battlefield for market share.
Sure, but from the perspective of senior leadership, which is represented so well by the character Vikram Singh in the book, technical brilliance without strict alignment is incredibly dangerous. It introduces unpredictable friction.
Friction or just actual innovation. When you are managing sprawling, complex legacy systems that multi-million-dollar clients rely on to run their businesses, you must prioritize loyalty and consensus over individual genius. What an architect views as toxicity or exploitation is actually the necessary subjugation of ego.
Subjugation of ego?
Yes, to the macro needs of the business. You simply cannot scale a global tech company if every brilliant engineer goes rogue to build what they think is best.
But this subjugation isn't just about maintaining code stability, is it? It's about manufacturing a false reality. Let's look at how this plays out in the actual measurement of work through the weaponization of recognition.
You mean the performance reviews?
Right. The book details these appraisal games and the POC dance, the proof of concept. You have a senior architect, Arjun, who builds a highly complex, highly practical deployment automation tool.
Which was not on the roadmap.
But let's be clear on what that means. He built a system that fundamentally reduces manual errors and saves hundreds of hours of labor. It solves real, tangible problems, and it is completely ignored during the performance review.
Because it was not what leadership asked for, nor was it what the client was paying to see.
Exactly. Because they contrast Arjun with Karan. Karan is a pure political operator. He builds a flashy, hollow synergy dashboard full of rainbow charts, pie graphs, smooth animations.
Clients love dashboards.
But it has no functional depth. It doesn't solve a single back-end problem, but he wins the innovation accolades. We also see a junior employee given the Star of the Month award not for technical merit, but purely for compliance and optics.
Well, compliance matters.
In a high-performance culture, code isn't a product. It's a political currency. A dashboard that works is software, but a dashboard that shines is survival. This internal reward system proves the environment isn't designed to recognize excellence. It is a tool for psychological control and loyalty theater.
I have to stop you there, because framing this purely as psychological control ignores the entire political economy of tech. Let's break down why that dashboard wins.
Okay, explain it to me.
You have to look at what sustains the corporate entity at the highest levels. A technically brilliant but unaligned tool, like Arjun's deployment automation, threatens the established roadmap.
Improves the roadmap.
It might be beautiful code, but if it disrupts the workflow or bypasses a manual check that a vice president promised a client would be there, it's a liability. It introduces unmodeled risk to the VP's quarterly targets.
So, efficiency is a risk.
Unplanned efficiency is, yes. On the other hand, Karan's flashy dashboard serves a highly functional purpose for leadership, which is optics and stakeholder management. Clients do not buy back-end elegance.
No, they just complain when the back-end crashes.
But they don't care how clean the deployment pipeline is. They buy the dashboard. Recognizing compliance is essential for maintaining order. A predictable team that delivers exactly what was modeled is vastly more valuable to an executive than a team of unpredictable mavericks who just change the underlying architecture without permission.
That makes sense in theory, if you're strictly managing risk, but look at the actual fallout. You're essentially overclocking a CPU without a cooling system.
Meaning what exactly?
You get a temporary spike in margin performance for the quarter because the dashboard looks great, but you inevitably fry the motherboard because the underlying architecture is rotting. And the way leadership enforces this optics-first culture is brutal.
You're talking about Samir.
Yes. Take the public hazing of Samir, a fresh junior developer. He's deliberately set up to fail by a senior colleague. He's given conflicting requirements, publicly humiliated in a stand-up meeting, and then put through an HR re-education process.
It's harsh. I agree.
Reality is entirely inverted, and he is framed as the liability. You cannot justify public hazing as a sociological tool for risk management. That is giving senior leadership way too much credit for what is just systemic bullying.
I am not defending the cruelty of the act. I'm analyzing the mechanism and why it's permitted to exist in the structure. When a junior developer enters the industry, they are full of academic ideals.
They want to write good code.
They operate under the assumption that the best code wins. But in a massive corporate structure, the primary requirement for survival is understanding the chain of command. Samir's hazing, while brutal, serves to violently strip away his academic idealism and integrate him into the reality of the hierarchy.
By breaking him.
If leadership allows junior developers to bypass protocol just because their logic is sound, the entire system fractures. The HR re-education is an effective way of teaching new entrants that they must operate within the corporate narrative. Their technical output must align with the business's political needs.
But this psychological subjugation isn't just about stroking executive egos or enforcing a chain of command. Control is just a means to an end.
What's the end then?
The real objective is material wealth, which brings us directly to the financial extraction at the heart of this culture. The material introduces a financial auditor, Anand, who uncovers what he calls phantom budgets.
Ah, the budgets.
This is where the mask of the ping-pong tables and wellness seminars truly slips. Critical funds meant for vital engineering resources, like server upgrades, security patches, basic software licenses, are systematically siphoned off.
Reallocated, not siphoned.
Siphoned, because where do they go? To lavish leadership offsites at luxury resorts, to charity galas that, upon closer inspection, are actually funneled into event management companies owned by HR's family members.
Well,
And the most egregious part? While this money is vanishing into executive perks, the engineers are forced to take a 15% shared sacrifice salary cut.
They were facing economic headwinds.
Leadership tells them they all need to tighten their belts to weather the economic storm, while executives are flying first class and staying in ocean view suites. If you're a junior dev listening right now, you might think, well, if my code is flawless, none of this matters.
It does matter, though.
It matters because they are stealing the resources you need to write that code and then cutting your pay when the servers crash. This isn't market friction. This is undeniable proof of systemic exploitation.
You are looking strictly at the micro ledger. You're looking at the company as if it were a purely technical apparatus. It is not. You have to look at the macro business perspective.
Enlighten me.
The survival of a subsidiary tech giant like Innovate Dynamics doesn't just depend on the speed of its servers. It depends heavily on power consolidation, client perception, and executive networking.
By throwing lavish parties?
What the engineers on the ground see as theft, the galas, the offsites, the terrace meetings, are the very mechanisms that secure multi-million-dollar B2B contracts. The CEO needs to project total invulnerability, an endless runway to the market.
By financially starving the employees who actually build the product?
By directing capital toward the highest leverage activities. Let's talk about that 15% salary cut. You have to understand the political pressure coming from above.
From the parent company.
Exactly. This company is a subsidiary of a massive offshore parent organization. The executives at Innovate Dynamics are given aggressive, non-negotiable margin targets. The cut, while undoubtedly brutal to the engineers, is a structural maneuver to satisfy the parent company's spreadsheet.
So they punch down to save themselves?
If the executive team fails to deliver those exact margins, the parent company doesn't just cut a few salaries, they might liquidate the entire division, thousands of jobs lost. The leadership is consolidating power and manipulating budgets to keep the corporate ship afloat in a very hostile ocean.
But they're hollowing out the hull of the ship to build a nicer captain's quarters. It is a fundamentally unsustainable model. Which brings us to the ultimate consequence.
You mean the turnover?
The evaporation of the workforce. By financially starving the engineering floor and psychologically breaking the talent to force compliance, the company triggers the very collapse it claims to be preventing. Let's break down the mechanics of the Dead Sea effect as it's presented in the book, because it perfectly explains this decay.
The argument being that the environment naturally repels top talent.
Exactly. Think of a body of water. Your top-tier engineers, the ones who actually understand the cloud-native architecture, who write elegant code, who see the security vulnerabilities, they are the water.
And they leave.
The moment the toxicity hits, the moment the appraisal games start and the phantom budgets freeze their resources, they evaporate. Why? Because they can. They have recruiters in their inbox every single day. So who's left behind? The salt. The heavy residue of untalented political operators, the middle managers who can't get hired anywhere else, and the executives who know how to play the compliance game. The toxicity concentrates. We see this vividly in the book through the ghosts in the machine, veterans like Rajesh.
Rajesh is a perfect example of the friction I mentioned earlier.
Rajesh is an engineer with 2 decades of deep institutional knowledge. But because he represents technical truth rather than political compliance, he becomes a threat. When he tries to warn leadership about the crumbling legacy API, a system on the verge of failure, by the way, he's mocked.
They call him the professor.
Yeah, they call him the professor to dismiss his expertise as mere academic rigidity. He is trapped in golden handcuffs and placed on a Kafka-esque performance improvement plan. Let's be real about what a PIP is in this culture.
It's a management tool.
Drives away the most capable talent, leaving the company incredibly fragile, unable to innovate, and running entirely on fumes.
That framing assumes that losing senior architects like Rajesh is a failure for leadership. I argue that it is a calculated, necessary purge. Let's look at it from the VP's desk.
Okay, let's hear the VP's excuse.
Senior architects who push for complete system overhauls, like Arjun and Priya pushing for a new cloud-native proof of concept or Rajesh demanding the API be rebuilt, are incredibly dangerous to immediate corporate stability. They are proposing ripping out the foundation of a legacy system that currently generates steady revenue just to build something better.
Better meaning functional, secure, and modern.
Better meaning untested, disruptive, and politically risky. To leadership, a loyalty purge is highly effective. It ensures that the engineers who remain, the SALT as you call them, will execute the current playbook without question.
So you're left with yes men?
Yes, you lose the innovators, but you gain absolute predictability. In a sprawling corporate machine, a predictable, compliant workforce that will just keep the legacy systems running is vastly more valuable than a rebellious, brilliant workforce that wants to rewrite the rules. Risk aversion is the primary driver of executive decision-making.
But again, you're overclocking the CPU to hit a quarterly target while frying the motherboard. Eventually, doesn't the structural integrity fail? The legacy systems will crash. The tech debt will come due.
It might fail eventually, yes, but corporate leadership operates on quarterly and annual timelines, not decades. Their mandate given to them by the board and the parent company is to survive the current fiscal year, hit the margins, and retain the clients today.
So it's just passing the buck.
They simply cannot risk the chaos of a massive system overhaul driven by engineering idealism. The timeline of an executive's tenure does not match the timeline of architectural decay.
And that right there is the core tragedy for anyone entering this field. Think about what this means for the junior developers listening to us right now.
They need to hear this reality, though.
You are essentially telling them that their technical growth, their passion for coding, their desire to build elegant and efficient systems will be actively suppressed in favor of political obedience. If a company views technical excellence as a threat and compliance as the only metric of value, then the entire promise of the tech industry as a meritocracy is a massive, smiling propaganda campaign.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would. The high-performance culture is designed to consume your brilliance silently and reward only those who applaud the loudest while the infrastructure burns.
I wouldn't say the meritocracy is a complete lie, but I would argue that junior developers fundamentally misunderstand what merit actually means in a corporate context.
It doesn't mean writing good code.
Merit is not just writing clean, scalable code. Merit is understanding the political economy of your organization. It's recognizing that your manager's primary goal is to manage risk, not to foster your individual engineering artistry.
That's incredibly cynical.
It's realistic. When Rajesh points out the critical flaws in the API, he isn't just offering a technical critique, he is creating a political problem for leadership, who now have to explain a delay or a budget overrun to the client. The junior developer must realize that true high performance means aligning your technical output with the narrative needs of the business.
But when alignment requires falsifying QA reports to meet a deadline, ignoring glaring security vulnerabilities to push a feature, and watching your colleagues be systematically gaslit in HR meetings, it ceases to be business strategy.
It's definitely a harsh environment.
It becomes structural corruption, the evidence of phantom budgets, funding executive lifestyles, the appraisal games where actual labor is ignored in favor of visibility, and the deliberate manufacturing of the Dead Sea effect all point to a modern corporate dystopia.
Dystopia is a strong word.
It fits. The high-performance culture isn't a necessary reality for market survival. It is a weapon used to extract labor, crush integrity, and fund the lifestyles of an unaccountable elite.
And I maintain that while the reality on the ground is deeply flawed, harsh, and often profoundly unfair to the individual, the actions of senior leadership reflect the brutal, uncompromising realities of market survival.
Survival for who, though?
For the entity. A corporation is a massive, lumbering beast. Alignment, perception, and stability must take precedence over engineering idealism, because without those things, the company loses its clients, the parent company liquidates the division, and the entity ceases to exist entirely.
So the ends justify the means.
The politics, the strict hierarchy, even the purges, they are the grim mechanics of keeping a massive organization functioning in a world that does not reward purity, but rewards execution, optics, and risk mitigation.
Well, this brings us to the ultimate takeaway, especially for the junior developers and fresh engineers listening who are trying to make sense of their own workplaces. I think we can both agree that entering this industry requires a profound paradigm shift.
Absolutely.
Technical brilliance alone is not a shield against corporate machinery.
No, it's not. If there is one crucial thing a new entrant to the tech industry must understand, it is the hidden political mechanics. You cannot just put your headphones on, stare at your IDE, and write code.
You'll get crushed if you do.
You have to understand the unwritten rules of corporate hierarchies. You have to know who holds the power, how narratives are formed, and how to protect your own psychological well-being when the system demands compliance over creativity. You have to learn how to read the room, not just the documentation.
Yeah. You have to learn how to survive without letting the system hollow you out. You have to protect your integrity, recognize when the Dead Sea effect is setting in, and build the quiet, desperate courage to walk away from a burning building before the toxicity becomes your new normal.
It's definitely a balancing act.
The tension between engineering truth and corporate narrative remains an open, unresolved challenge in our industry.
It is a dynamic that every professional will eventually have to face, decode, and navigate for themselves. There is no escaping the politics. There is only mastering them or being mastered by them.
Well said. For anyone wanting to dive deeper into these mechanics, I highly recommend exploring the source material we discussed today. The book is The Chilling Effect by Joy S., published by BFC Publications Private Limited.
Yeah, it's a great read.
It is readily available online on platforms like Google and Amazon. It offers a razor-sharp, forensic look at these exact dynamics and provides a powerful lens through which to view your own career.
Definitely. It allows you to draw your own conclusions about the modern workplace and the real price of high performance. It's a crucial perspective for anyone trying to understand the massive gap between what a company publicly says it values and what it actually rewards behind closed doors.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, when you walk into that gleaming glass skyscraper, are you building the future? Or are you just another load-bearing pillar waiting to crack under the weight of someone else's quarterly bonus?
Thank you for joining us on The Debate.
We will see you next time.